Have you ever caught yourself imagining a version of your life where everything finally works out? You're more confident, more successful, more attractive, more respected, more loved. And somehow everything that feels difficult in real life suddenly feels easy in your head. Maybe you imagine walking into a room and everyone noticing you. Maybe you imagine proving people wrong. Maybe you imagine having the perfect relationship, the perfect career, the perfect body, or the perfect moment where your life finally becomes what you always thought it could be. And for a little while, it feels good. But then you come back to reality and nothing has actually changed. So why does your mind keep doing this? Most of the time, this doesn't happen because you are lazy, delusional, or strange. It happens because your brain is trying to give you the feeling of progress before your real life has caught up. Real change is slow. It comes with awkward beginnings, failed attempts, waiting, rejection, uncertainty, and days where you try hard but still feel like the same person. But imagination skips all of that. In your head, you don't have to start from zero. You don't have to look inexperienced. You don't have to risk embarrassment. You jump straight to the part where you are already confident, admired, successful, chosen, and already living the life you wish was real. That shortcut feels comforting because it gives your brain the emotional reward without the real world discomfort. A better imagined life also gives you something real life often doesn't give you immediately, which is control. In real life, you can work hard and still not know when things will change. You can want more confidence and still have insecure days. You can want a different life and still wake up in the same routine with the same problems and the same version of yourself staring back at you. But in your imagination, everything moves at your speed. You can say the perfect thing. You can be admired by the people who ignored you. You can be wanted by the person who didn't choose you. You can become someone impressive in seconds. And that is why the fantasy can become so addictive. It gives you relief without risk. It gives you hope without effort. It gives you the feeling of winning without forcing you to face the possibility of losing. The problem is not that you imagine a better life. The problem begins when imagining it starts feeling better than actually building it. A lot of the time, you are not just imagining success. You are trying to repair a feeling. You may have felt overlooked, so you imagine being admired. Powerlessness turns into fantasies of control. Rejection becomes a longing to be wanted. Feeling behind makes you picture yourself suddenly ahead. And when you feel ordinary, you imagine becoming impossible to ignore. That is why these daydreams can feel so emotional. They are often built around the part of you that feels unseen. Your mind creates a world where that wound finally gets answered. A world where the people who doubted you regret it. A world where someone finally recognizes your value. A world where you no longer have to explain your worth because your life proves it for you. And for a moment, that feels healing. But it only heals temporarily because once the fantasy ends, the original feeling is still there. This is why the real question is not, why do I imagine a better life? The real question is, what feeling am I hoping that better life will give me? The fantasy may look like money, but what you really want could be safety. It may look like fame, when the deeper need is to feel seen. Looking perfect might really be about finally feeling good enough. Even winning can be less about success and more about no longer feeling powerless. Once you understand that, the fantasy becomes information. It reveals what your mind is truly hungry for. And that matters because you do not need to destroy the dream. You need to understand it, then bring it down to earth. Instead of only imagining the final version of your life, ask yourself what the smallest real version of that fantasy would look like today. If you imagine being confident, maybe the real step is speaking up once instead of staying quiet. If you imagine being fit, maybe the real step is one workout instead of a complete transformation. If you imagine being successful, maybe the real step is learning one skill, sending one message, applying for one opportunity, or creating one thing when no one is watching. The dream becomes dangerous when it stays too far away from your actual behavior. But it becomes powerful when it gives direction to your next move. Because the version of you in your head is not completely fake. It may be exaggerated and unrealistic, but it is usually built from something real. It is built from your desire to grow, to be seen, to feel proud of yourself, and to experience a life that feels closer to who you believe you could become. So maybe the goal is not to stop imagining a better version of your life. Maybe the goal is to stop using that imagined life as an escape and start using it as a map. Because the problem is not that you dream too much. The problem is when dreaming becomes a replacement for living. Your mind keeps showing you a better life because some part of you still believes one is possible. But if you only visit that life in your imagination, it will always disappear the moment you open your eyes. The real change begins when you take one small piece of that imagined version of yourself and turn it into something real. Not the perfect life, not the final transformation, not the dramatic comeback. Just one action that proves you are no longer only watching that version of yourself from a distance. You are starting to become them. If this made you think, subscribe to keep discovering your inner self.